All right. Good morning, KW Prosperity. It is Matt and Mary Beth with you here today. It is Thursday, June 4th. I had to think about that for a second. It didn't feel like
Yeah,
a Thursday for a second. Um, but
like
it is
June either.
Thursday. Yes. Thursday, June 4th, and we're moving along in the MREA. We are on page 249 right now, so we're still in the net a million stage. And we are on number 14, which is sticking to the budget model and controlling your costs. Yesterday, we really finished up the net a million leverage section. So, growing your team, building teamwork, and then working on quality service over quantity service. So we really kind of wrapped up, how the team plays into all that. And now as we move to page 249, we're in the money section, which, as Gary writes, in business, money is always an issue. Whether you have too little, and even if you have more than you expected, your quest as a real estate sales business person is to increase your revenues, control your costs, and at the end of the day, increase your net income. And now we're really at that stage where we're talking about how to net a million. And that really segues into challenge number 14, from going to earn a million to net a million. Is It's often centered around two monetary disciplines: sticking to the budget model, which, as he writes, is harder than it looks, and controlling costs, which is easier than it sounds. So Mary Beth, if we look at page 250, challenge number 14 is sticking to the budget model and controlling your costs. So I'm going to read the quote from Mike Mendoza, an agent from Phoenix,
Yes.
Arizona. He writes, "If we work hard to make it, we need to work doubly hard to keep it." And I kind of like that, because everything that we've been talking about really in the first 250 pages is working hard to make it and make it happen.
Yes.
But now it's keeping it and then getting it to that next level, which will be receive a million.
Yeah, and I love that we're here, because I know I keep talking about it, but if you go to the Win Make Give, Give podcast, Win Make Give group on Facebook, it's Ben Kinney, Chad Hyams, and Bob. We're talking a lot about saving and what we do with the money that we do make, putting it aside for retirement and to live on it, right? And so in the business, it's the same thing. When we're making that money and the income's coming in, it's really easy to be a little loose with our budget, because we have money here, money there. It's like almost like an allowance, a cookie jar. You fill the jar with cookies, well, all the cookies are going to get eaten. So budgeting is, on a personal, on a business, is where you're going to make your money. You can only cut so many expenses to create profit.
Yep.
And yet you do need to focus on creating revenue to create income. And yet it's amazing to me, and Gary Keller had this a few years ago, this family reunion of 2020 was the first year that I honestly believe that the people that were on stage, P&Ls were checked.
Yep.
For many years, Gary Keller and other great leaders of our company would interview big businesses on stage, big businesses. Yep. And from the outside looking in, like, you would imagine all of the revenue that would come in off of the sales volume of 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, 1 billion.
Yep.
In sales volume would create, ultimately it's going to create X amount of GCI. Now, what you do with it and what percentage you keep and the margins that you keep is where you become financially wealthy. And I would just say that as you're building a business,
it's also where you gain validity. I mean, to your point, on stage in the past, Gary Keller wouldn't always look at what the bottom line was in terms of what they were netting. It would be like, oh, wow.
He assumed they were following the whole book, not just the economic model lead generation part of it. He assumed that budget and organizational model were also being, followed.
Yep.
And ego gets in the way a little bit as we're building that business from 1 million to 2.4 million, let's say, in GCI to net the million. And so if you were to look at your business, yeah, you have a really fruitful, awesome business, but I guess you have to be attached to your goals. If your goal is to have a business that is netting $1 million,
yeah,
then you need to, what Gary's saying here, is stick to the budget model and control your costs.
yeah.
And that means, you know, we talked a bit about that in the budget model in the first part, but that means revisiting on a monthly basis what your true expenses are, sitting down with your business partner or your COO or your admin who is keeping track of some of those expenses, to have a financial meeting once a week, once a month. Mark King would even say once a day right now while we're in this. Matt, you and I are reviewing the numbers. We just came off our financial weekly conversation, but we're reviewing the numbers every day. And so that all speaks to controlling the costs, because if you have no idea what your bills are, or here's one for this month. My electric bill was through the roof on both houses.
Yeah.
Why? Because everybody's home.
I was gonna say you're at home more.
The kids are homeschooled. My mom's at the house or working from the house. I'm working from this house. So, you know, electric is up, but there's other things that are really down. But if we weren't watching
going out to dinner as much, like there's different things that being at home, you might be cooking more, you might be
absolutely,
you know, so you have to look at the balance there. Whereas the electricity might have gone up, yet your expenses in terms of food may have gone down.
And they absolutely have. And it's amazing that right there, that one thing right there was probably eating $300 to $500 a month.
Yep.
And eating out, ordering out, picking up takeout, whatever it was, just for the convenience. So I want you to hear me on this, because on the financial wealth building aspect of it, $300 to $500 a month could be $1 million 15 years from now.
Yep.
Put in the right mutual funds, or now $300 to $500 a month invested back into your business the right way, holding it accountable,
is massive.
Can also bring $1 million this year.
Yep. Well, yeah, and I think, Mary Beth, to take that a step further, I mean, we always talk about how we as a market center model for our agents, and I look at it from the perspective of when we do these financial meetings, we are going through all of our line items. We are looking at, because at the end of the day at Keller Williams, we have profit share. So for us as leaders, we need to hold every dollar accountable, because if we, you know, are too frivolous with the, you know, spending, or if we're like, oh, if we're not keeping things accountable and keeping things in check, that's ultimately money that's going towards profit share that's not being profit shared back out.
Well, so let's look at you and I as the partnered mega agents of Keller Williams Prosperity. And we have a large listing team and buyer team and admin core. And we have a responsibility. What you just said is we have a responsibility, and we feel that responsibility to ensure that our agents are receiving the most amount of profit share as possible, which means our owners are receiving the most amount of profit as possible.
Exactly.
So I'm urging you in your own business to pay yourself first. And that's what that Profit First. Yep. Profit First is a book by Mike Michalowicz. We interviewed him a few months ago.
Phenomenal.
And and Fix This Next.
Yep.
So Profit First is pay yourself first. Because what's happening is you're taking the rest and the leftover. Well, some months you might say, well, there's nothing there for me. While other months you're blowing through $2,000 that you really didn't need to blow through. It should have been back in the budget for those months that there was no money coming in.
Yep.
And so stick to the budget, know your numbers, spend a lot of time in your numbers, get real comfortable with it. If you're a type A behavior, it gets fun. It gets really fun once you get over the fear of looking at the numbers.
Well, yeah, and I also think that the next step and process to that is getting buy-in from your team, because, you know, when we're now in the net $1 million phase, we're no longer in the stage where it's just you, myself, and I. You know, it's you're now talking about transaction manager, you've got listing coordinators, you've got marketing assistants, and all of that, if you're not careful, will cost money, you know, because people, you know, as the business grows, and you and I have both seen this, as a market center grows, there's more people that are going to say, oh, well, I need this, or, oh, I need to attend that, or I need This is, and so it's really important to really streamline and say, okay, well, what do we really need? And to really defend the expense or defend why you need what you need, as opposed to saying, yep, do it. It's only $50, do it. It's not a big deal. To really hold it accountable.
Sure. Need versus want. That's actually an activity that we did second session of Win Make Give.
Yeah.
Is need versus want. Netflix. Is Netflix a need or a want?
It's a want.
It's a want. Is even there's a lot of things that if we were to really, really look at, they're wants. We don't need them. And in our business, we need to have the same discernment.
Yep.
It's really important to have that discernment. There's a gut check. When you're wasting money. When it's a fix. Now, you said something else is that when you thought made me think of something. I accidentally got into Gary Keller's mastermind with his top 50 at the time. This was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. So I accidentally got into that group, and I remember sitting next to Althea Osborne. I got her tea.
Yep. Love it.
Love it. Wow. And Jimmy and Linda McKissick were in there, and a gentleman named Martin Bonomo. Okay. So Martin had a huge business, and he got to a level where he said, why do I want to make more money? Like, Gary, this is the challenge I'm having. It was right before we started talking about expansion and going into other markets. Like an agent can take their business and move into other markets without actually having an office, a physical location there. They just partner with a local Keller Williams. And so he was like, why would I want to do that? Like, why bother if I have enough money, if I have my retirement is, we're good.
Yeah.
And Gary looked at him and Gary said, what about the people that work for you? And Martin just was like, done. Good enough, Gary. Because the point was, there were people inside of his world that even when he was hitting his level of success and achievement, they weren't hitting theirs yet. And if they couldn't do it in his world, they would leave. And so then what would his business look like then? So he realized in that conversation, I believe, and I realized that if you would just take the goals and dreams of the people inside of your world and add those up, is their goal bigger than what you even have out there for the team? And I would do a gut check on that as well.
Well, yeah, and I often think that, we've both been in situations where, well, not just we, but I think if you're a capacity talented individual, you're always asking, are the goals of your leader big enough for you to be satisfied or for you to grow into and be able to hit your goals? And I think that we've both, I like to believe we're capacity talent, and I know we are. And I think that's where you are, the roles that you're in, you're always looking at, is the leadership and the leader in your world, do they cast a big enough goal for you to really want to be in?
Yep. And that's really, really important when you are building a $1 million sales business, $1 million any kind of business. Like you said before yesterday, this book is not just about building a real estate business. You can take these models and philosophies and apply them to any business. And as a real estate agent, you should be helping those entrepreneurs inside of your database, inside of your sphere. That's a way to give back in a time like this. We were just talking on our financial meeting again, how we can make a difference, right? How we can make a difference without just having lip service as to what is going on in this crazy world. And I think we all came together to agree that the way we make a difference is through education. And the way we make a difference is in our local market and educating young ones of the potential and what they need to do to build financial wealth and generational wealth. And that's how we give back to a community. We give back to our people. And, I want you guys to hear that, because I think through education and sharing is how you secure a $2.4 million GCI business and beyond, is you get real deep with your roots into your local market and your people.
Absolutely. And I think, to come back to the source material here at the bottom of page 251, I just want to read what Gary writes, and even on to page 252, because I think it's important. He says, when you build in systems and processes, they tend to serve two purposes. First, they help you keep your good habits and do the right things. And second, they make it very, very difficult to regress into old bad habits and do the wrong things. He says, in this way, your budgetary systems should be geared to keep you focused on following the money and to prevent you from losing control of your expenses. And with that, just real quick, and then because I want you to jump in on page 252 at the top, he says one easy example of this is to separate your deposit account from your operating account. Only transfer enough into your operating account to cover that month's budgeted expenses, which I think is important. Then set a business standard for you and your staff to avoid exceeding that amount. So really, at the very least, it's making you aware of every item that exceeds your budget allowance, and awareness is half the battle, is what he says. So I just wanted to highlight that because I think it's very important to touch on.
Absolutely, that's right where I was going to go, because setting expectations, you said that, having a clear standard with the team, setting expectations as to how we're going to run this company is one thing.
Yep.
Little things like that, and I was an agent, and I know this, so, and
Yep.
I've coached thousands and thousands of agents. To separate the accounts is your first step. Bill Boswell, our operating partner, who's a brilliant brain. I don't know, the man's mind just works all the time, overtime.
Yep.
He teaches a fabulous budgeting class that I know that he has gotten from different mentors that he's had in his life. Mm-hmm. And yet he embraced it. And he was that student that had to get to that point where he would look at his accounts and then learn how to have fun with managing the personal budget to now the business budget. And that's why, listen, we were #1 in profit in all of Keller Williams' new offices that launched last year. That is by design, not by default. And so I know that Matt and I come in with some KW knowledge as to how to run a balance sheet and how to run an income statement. But the one thing that we all agree on, and we were just on our call, is separating those monies out of the main account. Don't use one big bulk account. Oh, well, that's my business account. Well, is that your business operating, or is that your business future expenses? Is that your business profit share? You should have multiple accounts for your business, multiple accounts for your personal retirement, tax account. And so if you would just take that exercise alone on how many accounts should you have and how could you manage your money, it's really important that we don't treat profit as as wasted expense, fun money, or profit that's supposed to be allocated to go back into the business, or tax money that's supposed to be put aside so you can pay your taxes. It's really important that that stays separate.
Well, and you really need to make sure that you have somebody that's holding it accountable. One thing that he says on 252, Gary writes that another good technique is to have someone else, a CPA, a financial consultant, or an eligible peer, hold you and your business management accountable, and then schedule monthly consultations with you. However, what he says is if you're not going to take the guidance, or if you're not going to actually let the CPA or the person come in and really hold you accountable, then it's not worth having it.
I will also say to you, we spoke to our accountant yesterday. Guys, your accountants, they'll take a 10, 15-minute conversation with you once a month. I'll tell you why. Yesterday was one of the most fruitful conversations that I've had with my accountant. And I am 42 years old. I've had my accountant since I am 15. So he has been with me as a kid, through the 20s, college, and then all through this career. And he sees what I've been working towards. And last night was the first conversation of, Mike, I need to see what's going on with my retirement accounts. I forgot that I had this one other account. So what I want to say is there was an opportunity for him in a 10, 15-minute conversation once a month. There would be an opportunity in there for him to set me up with a Roth, or let's set up another mutual fund, or why don't we do this for King with the 529? And so to your point is find those mentors in your life, and your accountant is one on the financial end. To the other point that Gary's mentioning in here, it is never good to have the same person cut the check that signs the check. that is where I have seen people lose, and I've been in the office when it's happened, and I've been in the restaurant business when it happens, that the same person is collecting the money, is signing for the money, is spending the money. And then you get real comfortable, and then you look at the money and you're like, where did the money go?
Yeah, it's just that lack of oversight.
And then you look for your manager and she's gone too.
Yeah, it's that second step in the process of not having one person do it all. It's having someone else just have that oversight in the process.
Yeah, and we have that in our office, which is fantastic because I know Lisa works so hard and she's in those numbers all the time. And I know she appreciates when we dive in there to just make sure that everything's kosher.
Yeah. Well, and I think the last thing I just want to say on this bottom of 252, you talked a little bit about want versus need from the podcast. At 252, he just says listings and lead generation are urgent matters. However, spending money should always be a deliberate enterprise. So listings and lead gen are more in the need category. So obviously you want to focus on that and less on the want side when you're looking at managing expenses.
You can cut everything out of your business.
Yeah.
You can go knock on doors and go get listings, and you can have amazing business in 60 days.
Well, I'd love to almost continue this conversation tomorrow with Kurt, Megan, and Dana, just to talk about how they stick to their budget model, control costs, and how that ties into investment properties, but also just how it ties into their business, because this is a huge piece to the wealth building process to really obtain and grow wealth. So I think it would be good.
Yes, absolutely. And maybe we can just pop up and we'll share Ben Kinney's live on the 50, 25, 25.
Yeah.
To his point is in your business, the same thing. We're talking about the 30, 30, 40 guys. The 30, 30, 40 is you're going to net 40% of the money that you make. 30% of it is going to go to operational costs. 30% of it will go to cost of sale. And you will net 40%. There is a methodology to that. In your personal, we are striving to get to a point where we live on 50% of our income. We save and invest 25% of our income, and the other 25, is used as fun and whatnot. So, our wants.
I think we'll definitely continue that conversation with them tomorrow. We'll definitely pull that up. I think this is a good place to stop today before we move into the U section, which is pages 253 to about 262. So we can work on that. Just a programming note for us. Tomorrow we have the MREA call. We'll focus on this with Kurt, Megan, and Dana, and of course, you and I. Next week, Monday and Tuesday, we have spring masterminds. So if you haven't registered for that, if they're still, I don't know if they've sold out.
They are closing it out.
But they're very close, if not already. However, that's going to be really from 11 to 4, Monday and Tuesday next week. So we will not be doing our MREA call, but we'll be continuing them next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday next week. We'll be able to, really finish out the net $1 million section, so we can then switch gears into the receive $1 million either end of next week or very early that following week.
Yes. And next Thursday, we will be interviewing those of you watching now. Next Thursday, we're going to be interviewing at 12 o'clock, Ron Iosa and Bill Boswell. And we're going to be talking about their journey and why they chose to bring Keller Williams to Passaic County in Wayne, New Jersey. So
that'll be a busy, that'll be a really good Thursday, because we'll have this call and then we'll segue really right into the call with Bill and Ron. So that'll be awesome.
Awesome.
Great. Well, have a good rest of your day. Thanks for everybody who tuned in, and we will see you tomorrow and next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.